Wait. That's not that song. What song is that? What are you singing? What's going on right now? It's the House of the Rising Sun. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Beautiful. Okay, so I'm... Spill the wine. Okay, no. All right, here we go. So this talk, I called Jim, and I think, I can't remember what the title was supposed to be. Something about if you can't say something good, that's what the title was going to be, if you see your bulletin from last week. But we started our Wednesday night group this past Wednesday, and it's called Real Talk, Wrestlings and Revelations, or Wranglings and Revelations, one of those. And it's just about real people having wrestled with something in their lives and what the revelation was. Because there's always a revelation. There's always a revelation. We always wonder, what is this about? And there's a revelation. So that's what the Wednesday night gathering from 6 to 8, supposedly, but we're gonna keep it to that next time. And if you want to know any more about that, just give me email me or call Jim at the Harmony's phone line. But what came up, and the reason why I changed my talk this morning, was someone asked me a question about my talk last week. And last week I was talking about how prayer works. And the person couldn't really believe that. Couldn't believe that for the rest of the world. Like, how does that? And brought up some different things about how, didn't understand how prayer could work in other situations the way I described it. And so I want to share with you, because here's what I know. If there's a question in the room, there's a question in the room. There's more than one person that has that question. And prayer is such a powerful tool that we use. I want to do what I can to help you all understand how prayer works as best as I can and the best that I can understand. So this today is going to be about whether prayer works or not. And the question was asked, do you really think that prayer works like that? Do you really think it does? No, I don't. I don't think it works that way. I know that it works that way. I know how it works. And what I know is from my lived experience. And if you don't have a lived experience that you can remember, that you can recognize of how prayer worked for you, then you don't really know the steps. But you can at least understand what the steps are and then try to apply them. So I'm going to talk to you about and I'm going to be talking from here. Mostly I kind of come around and chit-chat with you guys, but this is such a deep talk, and I wanted to bring in some other information that I have. It's not just my lived experience. It's all my readings. It's our new thought theology, because that's what we are. We're new thought, which means that we don't believe in the traditional way that we were brought up, and that there is separation, that there is a God and there is some evil force that has us doing things and that we're constantly fighting against. And that can't be. If we believe that God, there is only one power, then where is room for this evil force? So we don't believe that. That's what New Thought is about. So what we believe is that there's one power, one love, and we're connected, and who our founders are. Now, if you have a pen or a piece of paper, write this down. Otherwise, look at it again on Facebook to get these names, because these are our founders. This is where we got the information from. Phineas Quimby in the early 1800s was the beginning. Thomas Troward in the 1800s. Emma Curtis Hopkinson, she came from Mary Baker Eddy. Her religion, she came from that and she broke off and said, well, no, there's a little bit more to it than that. So these are the people that you want to be reading. Ernest Holmes from Science of Mind. Unity, Myrtle and Charles Fillmore, and Eric Butterworth, Emmett Fox, and on. But these are authors and books that you want to read and see what their thoughts are on prayers, not just my thoughts. And you take the thoughts beyond what they're talking about, because anything you read, even if you're reading a fiction book, even if you're watching something on television, you're thinking, that can't happen. How can that happen? That's ridiculous. So we're constantly bringing our thoughts to whatever it is we look at and what we read. And so I'm asking you to do that as well, to take a look at some of those books. So how do you know when something happens? How do you know? How do you know anything at all? What I'm saying is, how do you know for sure The thing that Oprah Winfrey talks about. What do you know for sure? How do you know? It begins with a question that you ask. You cannot, and I tell you guys all the time, this is my thing. I tell you all the time, I cannot answer a question that what? Hello? Can't do it because their ears are not open. You can't answer it. So there's no point in talking to somebody if they're not asking you a question. The moment they ask you a question, you can jump right in. But until then, it's not. And so this question was asked. So I'm going to go ahead and try to do it. But first it begins with the question that you ask, and then it comes to clarity. My friend says, she calls it the prayer beneath the prayer. So you're praying for something, but what is it really about? What's it really about? So last week when I talked about it, I was talking about something that I knew had a time frame to it, right? Because last week I was talking about the house that I wanted and how I saw a house, I didn't get it, talked to George, he said, make it clear. I made it clear. When I made it clear, I knew because Spirit had already told me what to do. He said, make it clear, it's yours, because I answered prayer. I made it clear, this right here is what I want. Spirit said, okay, it's yours. And I moved around differently. My actions were different. I didn't take any nonsense from the landlord. I didn't care about how many people had showed up because I already knew it was mine. And it was going to be rented in a month or two, so there was a time frame on it, right, because it's a rental. So he's not going to hang out for years trying to rent this thing. So I already knew how to do it. That was that particular thing. But if you're talking about the consciousness, peace on the planet, this is not just you. This is not a personal prayer, although it's a personal prayer for you. And it begins with, if you're praying for peace on the planet, but you don't have peace in your life, good luck. Good luck with that. It's not going to work for the planet if it's not working for you. Because peace on the planet is a conscious situation, right? So you begin with you, and everywhere you go, you take the peace with you. And I get comments all the time. I'm just doing what I'm doing. And people say, oh, you meditate. Okay, that's why you're so peaceful. Really? You think I'm peaceful? Okay, but I am, because I'm peaceful because I know what I know, and I don't need to convince you. So whatever you're saying doesn't upset me. It's your truth, not mine. And if it is your truth, it resonates with me, and I'm peaceful about that. Do you understand? So those are the things that happen. But today's talk is about personal experience and the experience of others. So I'm going to bring in some other things. I'm going to bring in some readings from the Bible, from Viktor Frankl, from Emily Cady, and some works from Mother Teresa, so that you understand what I'm talking about. And there's much, much more to know. So I'm asking you to do your homework. I'll have some action items at the end. And take a look at the video later to get some of those names I shared with you. And just read some of those books and get some of that information if you haven't already. I'm not saying you haven't. Reread them. I read them all the time, all the time. So here's a story. I'm going to start with a story because I think stories help you remember, help you understand what I'm trying to tell you. I was asked the other day, I was in a class. Class is over, and this lady asked me, how do you silence your phone? I guess her phone had gone off in the class. I didn't hear it, but it went off, and she was like, how do you silence the phone? And I said, okay, so I showed her the little side button, and I was telling her some other things, and another person was listening, and I was telling them about how you put on the do not disturb, because I have do not disturb on my phone at this time of the day, because I know from 10:30 to 12, I'm going to be here. So I was showing her that, and he was asking me, so how do you do it? And I was telling him about the do not disturb sign, and while I'm talking, he's shaking his head. While I'm talking, okay? Let me ask you this. If someone asks you something, and they're shaking their head while you are explaining, what does that mean to you? Hello? They're absolutely not listening. So I stopped talking. Right? I don't keep talking. If you ask a question, I'm answering, but if you're doing all this, okay, well, you clearly already know. I don't need to waste my time with that, right? And then he said, oh, you don't have to get mad. I'm not mad, honey. You misunderstand the situation. I'm not mad, but you clearly already know. So why would I be talking? You can shake your head and still be no, you can't. If you think that, honey, you are wrong about that. That's not what's happening. You cannot. And he said, okay, well, tell me what you want to tell me. I don't want to tell you anything. You just asked the question. I have an answer, but if you don't want to hear it, it's okay with me. I'm good. So yeah, I moved off. I stopped talking. So here's the thing is that I just said. Here's the question, right? How do you turn the phone off? But what's the question beneath the question? What did he really want to know? He didn't want to know how to turn the phone off. He wanted to tell me how to turn the phone off, right? He already knew how to turn the phone off. He wanted me to agree with the way that he did it. Do you understand? That's why he was shaking his head, because he already knew what he knew. He already knew what he knew. So when you shake your head, new information can't come in. That's why you have to ask yourself, what is the question or what is the prayer beneath the prayer? If you ask for a new car, what's the real thing? Do you need a new car? You have a car. Or maybe you don't have a car. So I'm saying you're asking for a new car. This is a supposition, because I have I have old raggedy cars. I don't care. I want my car to go when I put the gas, stop when I put on the brake, and that is all I care about. That's all I care about. So I have, Jason and I had this old Bronco. He gave me his old Jeep that he has sitting in my yard there. I went to the bank, and I was coming out. You know how they have those what are those things? Those stone things? What are they? They're not the speed things, but they're all alongside of you, so they make sure that you stay in your lane. Whatever those things are, they're tall little. What are they called? The barriers or whatever. They're tall, and so they keep you on your lane so nobody else. So anyway, so I'm trying to come out in my car and misjudged where it was, right? And so I hit it, along the side. So you think I would stop and back up, right? So I would miss it. But no, I just kept going because I don't care. So yeah, so there's a big old huge gash along the whole side of it. And this woman who's in her little Mercedes or whatever new car she was in, she's looking at me. Seriously, her window was down because she was doing that. We were at the ATM. And she's looking at me, she goes, "Oh, baby." I drove that car until we got rid of it with that huge crease down the side because I don't care. All right? So if I ask for another, it's not even new, just another car. The prayer beneath my prayer is a car that moves forward when I put the gas on and a car that stops when I hit the brakes. That's all I want. But there are other reasons to have a car. So when you ask about, I want a new car, what do you really want? Do you want something that's brand new because it makes you feel good about who you are? See, I am a minister who talks about abundance. And you would think that I would want something brand new and shiny. But that's not abundance to me, is the car moves. I'm not going to not take a car if somebody wants to give me one, but I'm not paying for one either because I want to spend my money traveling, right? Visiting, giving people presents. I don't want to spend money on a car. I don't want to pay for somebody else's payment because I don't want to do it, right? So that's the point. What is the prayer beneath the prayer? As you are thinking about and saying, God, I want this, what do you really want? That's all. It's not because God doesn't care what you're asking for. But what happens is if you don't know what you're asking for, what you're really asking for, that's when you say prayers don't work. That's when you start saying prayers don't work. Because you didn't understand what you were actually asking for. The guy didn't want to know how to turn off the phone. He wanted to tell me how to do it or have me agree with the way that he was doing it. Okay, that's all I just want you to know about that. So that's how the story goes. So the real question is, what do you want? What do you want? Do you need more information? Is that what you want? Because sometimes you don't really know what to pray for. See, but people get confused, there's so much going on here because it's a complex situation. I don't know what to pray for. Then ask for that. God, what am I praying for here? What do I need here? What's mine to do here? That's such a powerful question. What's mine to do here? What is mine to do? And it really brings you peace when you understand it, because really, how much can you do for someone else? And what we know is this: if we are all one, and we are all individualized expressions of God, then how do we get the things we pray for? God in individualized form has to bring it to us. Other godlings have to get involved, right? It doesn't just, a car doesn't just drop from heaven, right? It doesn't just drop from the sky. A tree doesn't just, it's there, except maybe at the beginning. But from this point on, have to be seeds. Somebody's got to plant that seed. Somebody's got to drop that seed. Seed's got to be watered, whatever it is, right? So there's action that has to take. It doesn't just fall. And so we don't know what has to be moved around for the prayer you ask for, that you're praying for, to come and to be answered. So we wait for that. There's no, the thing that I talked about last week happened right away because there was a time frame on it. The guy was going to rent the house within that month. So there was a time frame. I could see that easily it was going to happen. But if I'm asking for peace on earth, just because I ask for it, and I'm praying for it, and I'm becoming peaceful, and I'm doing what is mine to do, I may not see it in my lifetime. Doesn't mean it's not happening. If you look at slavery, how this happened, and how it ended, because after so many prayers and so many people getting involved and saying, you know what, this isn't right, this isn't right, this isn't right. This took years. But it changed. It took years for people to get out of and to stop the concentration camps. Years. There was lots of prayers going on. The prayer was answered. Maybe not in your lifetime. Maybe not. And a lot of people got killed. Because we had to change the consciousness. Okay? It's not me. It's all of us deciding. Because there's free will. So if it works for me, it works for you. And for everyone else who doesn't even understand or believe that we are connected. And so they pray for things or do things because they don't understand that we're connected, like hurting someone else. Until they understand that, until the consciousness of the planet changes, that prayer is being answered, but you won't see the answer necessarily in your lifetime. But it doesn't mean it's not being prayed for. So that's a big concept for you to understand. So back to the thing about what's the question really being asked and why I stopped talking. In Matthew 7:6, this is one of my favorite quotes. Do not give what is holy to the dogs, or cast your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces. The meaning or the point of that is to know when to speak and when not to speak. This is what I'm telling you about when a question is being asked. You can't throw your wisdom out to people who aren't open to hearing it. Doesn't mean it's not wise. It means they're not ready. You can say what you want, and then you can say what you want to say, but then you let go of whether or not they get it or not. That's not your issue. Your issue is to speak your truth, because you're not just speaking to this person. There's 15 other people in the room, in this room, or however many people there are in this room. I'm not counting really well. But wherever you are, you speak your truth. You don't worry about whether somebody gets it or not. You don't cast them before swine. Those who have ears to hear will hear it. That's all you have to worry about. And then you shake the dust off your feet and move on. Do you know what that means, to shake the dust off your feet? That when the Jews would be in a Gentile city and they would leave that city, they would shake the dust, and literally shake the dust off their feet to let themselves know that they're not doing what the Gentiles are doing. They're practicing their belief. They've left that behind and practiced their own belief. So shake the dust off your feet and move on. That's the point. So it's our job, and someone asked me the other night, we were talking about what we believe. This is a big thing for New Thought people to talk to fundamental people about what we believe, because they always want to get into an argument about it. We don't want to argue. I don't want to argue. I'm not going to argue with you. You need to convince me. I don't need to convince you of anything. I'm already convinced. Convince yourself. But you are clearly already convinced. Neither one of us need to convince each other. And you know why? Here's what I believe. All roads lead to Rome. If you're looking for God, you're going to find God. You don't have to find God in the way I found God. Find God in a way that resonates with you. That's what we're about. We don't care which way you go and what religion serves you, because religion is just a platform to get to God. Do you get that? It's not God. It's a platform to get to God. So find the religious belief that works for you, that your heart resonates with, and that's what works for you. And that is all good. It's all good. So that's what we do. All right. So I want to talk about Viktor Frankl. And one of the things he said, everybody knows who Viktor Frankl is, yes? So if you don't, please say no, and I'll go ahead. Okay. So Viktor Frankl was a concentration camp survivor. He lost much of his family during that, and he went through horrors. But he survived it. And he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning, and talked about how he was able to survive that, and come out intact. Not only did he survive it, but he created a therapy called logotherapy. Logotherapy is what Viktor Frankl created. Logos meaning exactly that, meaning. What is the meaning? So we're not looking for why things happen in our lives, we're looking for what is the meaning. What do we give meaning to? And so this is what Viktor Frankl says. This is a quote from his book. Cold curiosity predominated even in Auschwitz, which is one of the concentration camps, somehow detaching the mind from its surroundings. That's what we talk about, detachment. Try not to be emotionally detached to what's happening, and though that's hard to do when it's happening to you, but try to be detached. From mindfulness, which came to be regarded with a kind of objectivity. I had been convinced that there were certain things I just could not do. I could not sleep without this or that, or I could not live without this thing or that thing or the other thing. But I had been convinced of lies. You can live with or without. And so what he wanted to know now is, what is the meaning of this life? What is the meaning of my life? What do I want to accomplish that gives it meaning? And this is your question. So it doesn't make any difference what people outside of you are doing or trying to make you do. I remember talking to my daughter recently, fairly recently, as an adult, as a married woman with children. She was sharing some of her trauma being raised by me. And hey, you got to be open to it, because everybody has some trauma from their parents. So she says she remembered when my husband, her father, and I would be arguing. And he was an abusive person. And we would be arguing. She was young. And she would say, she'd be hearing us. In her little mind, she would say, "Mom, why don't you just shut up? If you just shut up, he would stop. Just shut up." And all of you know me. That simply wasn't possible. It wasn't possible. But now, as an adult, living with her own issues and her own marriage, she said, "Now I understand why you couldn't. You can't keep quiet about your truth. You can't. I refuse to allow anyone, and I don't care what the consequences are, you don't get to tell me or try to make me do or be anything that I am not." That's our choice. Do you get that? That is free will. When somebody was talking about, I think we were talking about this on Wednesday night, that they don't like people, and I don't know who does, but then like people, really driving up fast behind them on the freeway. You know what I mean? There's, somebody particularly those guys in those big trucks, and always just running right down there. For me, I don't like it either. And what I do is take my foot off the gas and slow on down. And at some point, they'll go around. Because you're not going to, one, make me speed up because I'm going the speed I want to go, or two, make me move over because I'm in this lane. This is my spot. So I believe that is bullying behavior. You want to be where I want to be, or you're trying to make me do something you want me to do. I'm sorry. You don't get to do that. You get to do whatever you want to do to fix this, but what you don't get to do is shove me off the road because I have a right to be here. You understand? We have a right to be here. We have a right to believe what we believe. We have a right to pray and know God the way we know God, and God will answer whichever way we know how. Whatever we need, God will give you. So let's talk about prayer from a personal experience. That was a prayer, what I was talking about from the logotherapy and from Viktor Frankl was him saying inside himself what I said inside myself when someone was trying to make me do something I didn't want to do. You don't get to take my soul. You don't get to take my thoughts. You can try to ravage this physical body, but this physicalness, this manifestations, this is not permanent. This comes and goes. What is permanent is our soul. What is permanent is our God. That's a permanent. What's eternal? What is eternal is what's within us, our soul. And you don't get to take my soul. I don't care what you do with the body. You're not going to take my soul. It's not going to happen. And I get to say what that is. So I'm going to talk about personal prayer, and then I'm going to let this go because I know this is a long thing, but it's so important to me to try to share with you how prayer works. So as a child, everybody has a story. I'm going to share a little bit of my story. Not because it's special, but because everybody has one. And I want to tell you that whatever your story is, if you don't talk about it, deal with it, it will be with you. It won't go away because you don't talk about it. It doesn't go away because you don't acknowledge it. It's still there. You have to deal with the story. So the story is for me, and to do with prayer, is that I was abused sexually as a child. I was abused. And that's not a big, you could talk about 90% of the population has been abused. That's not a new story. It just is a story. But for my personal prayer, what I asked for is, as a child, was for God to make sure that abuser didn't come to me. That was my prayer. And so what happened was, I figured out a way to pretend that I was asleep. And for some reason, the abuser didn't come to me or stopped messing with me when he thought I was asleep and moved off. Okay? So that was the answer to my prayer. I learned how to do that. Here's what I didn't realize. As an adult, going to therapy for something else, and I talked about this, that I had years and years and years of guilt because my prayer caused someone else to be abused. Do you understand that? So my prayer caused someone else to be abused, but it did not. It did not. That was what that abuser was doing. That's not what my prayer caused. And the other person had a right to say a prayer as well and do whatever that they needed to do to get that off. So that wasn't mine to take on, but I did. And we do. And that's part of what we think about as prayer because we think the universe isn't abundant enough. And if I pray for this, somebody else isn't going to get that. And this is absolutely not true. I can pray for something, and so can you. And so can you. The universe is abundant. Okay? So we don't have to take on any guilt. I have too much money. There are people starving, and there are literally people starving in other places in the world, and there are. Because that is the consciousness of wherever that is, not the people who are starving, but the people who are leading them, the people who are governing them. That is their consciousness. And until we all pray for that and decide that what the action is that we're going to take, that's going to continue to happen, but it's always going to happen because new people are going to come up and think that, oh, I'm going to get mine by taking it from you, by making you less, by giving you less, I get more. That's always going to be a world consciousness. That's just the way it's going to be. And what we need to do is, what is that to me? What's my role in this? So let me talk one more thing, and then I'm going to move off. Mother Teresa. Everybody knows what she did. What Mother Teresa did was she had a genuine desire to serve the poor. And so she pursued that path. Her motivation was clear to her. She had to help others, and she had to go where they were. That was her role. And the lives she changed. She was going to leper colonies, and long before we had AIDS victims and people who no one else wanted to touch. And here's what she said. When you judge someone, you have no time to love them. She showed the world what unconditional love looks like. I will love you when you're no longer a leper or somebody that scares the hell out of me. But she didn't say that. And that was hers to do. What is yours to do? I talk about it all the time. What is yours to do? You don't have to go to a leper colony. That's not necessarily yours to do. It was hers. This is mine. To talk about real talk. to talk about how prayers really work, to talk about my experiences, to share with you how that you are brave enough to walk through whatever circumstances you are going through. That's mine to do. What is yours to do? This is Mother Teresa's prayer, and I love this. It's a little bit long, but this is what she says, because I think this is part of what we are. Her prayer is this: shine through me. Shine through me, and be so in me that every soul I come into contact with may feel your presence in my soul. That's all we need to do. Shine through me. My every morning prayer is, Father and I are one. And I call it the 3 L's. I let love lead. Love is God to me. I let love lead in all that I am, that I think, that I say, and that I do. I let love lead. That is God shining through me. That is God, because I am a human being, and I can, judgy. But God doesn't do that. So I let love shine through me. So here's the action items that I want you to do. I want you to think about doing. And that's just simply pray Mother Teresa's prayer. Let God shine through me so that they may see God in me. That is what we get to do. That's a prayer we can all pray, and it'll change everybody's life. This is who we are. New thought. This is what we believe, that we are one. And how we pray is to be clear and know what the prayer is underneath the real prayer, the prayer that you're praying. What's the real prayer that you want? So we get clear. Make a demand on the universe. Do what is ours to do. Do what is ours to do. And when we do that, our prayers are absolutely answered. Because when we pray, we're told what to do. Whether we take it up or not is a choice we get to make. We don't have to take it up. We ask for it, but we don't have to take it. Like, Jesus said, God, can you take this from me? Is there any way? He knew what he was here to do. But man, it was tough. And he said, if thy will be done, but if you could take it away, I'd certainly appreciate it. And he went through and did what he was here to do, to show us the way. This is what we know. This is how we pray. My question to you, what will you do? Namaste.